Hey y'all. Happy Saturday Eve. Happy Saturday Eve. Happy Saturday Eve. Welcome to we're just doing a quick chat today. I'm just really checking in. So I had some time and I wanted to check in. Um, and happy holidays to you all. If you are online and if you can hear me, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you can hear me. I just want to check in with you all. I want to check in. I want to see um, how you all are doing with the challenge. I want to see how your holiday was. And there we go. I want to give you some encouragement to keep going. And so, as you come on, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me. And let me know how your Thanksgiving was if you celebrate. If you didn't, totally fine. But let me know how your holiday was. Let me put this notification on focus mode. Do not disturb. There we go. How was y'all's holiday? You all, I was in Florida. I was in Florida for Thanksgiving, and they were in the 80s in Florida. I was visiting some family who just moved down there, and it was good to get out of Dallas for a second. But as always, there's no place like your own place. But yeah, I had a great Thanksgiving. I ate a lot of unhealthy food, a lot of food I don't eat. Did y'all eat good on Thanksgiving? Because you should have. If you were celebrating, and you should have given yourself permission to eat good on Thanksgiving, because I have, and I'm going to be eating leftovers until tonight. Because tomorrow is the first, and I am going on a different food regimen until the end of the year, and it's going to be a little bit difficult. But I tried on a winter coat from last year, and I was wearing this coat for two winters, and I tried it on, and my arms are like this. I said, "Oh, you in big back territory. You need to lay off of some of those weights, and you need to slim down." And so, you know, I gotta lose some of this weight. That's it. I just gotta lose some weight. I already work out. I'm pretty muscular, but I can't be ripping out my clothes. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Hey, Veronica. She says, my Thanksgiving was great and yours. My Thanksgiving was really good. I learned how to cook. This side of my family, who I visited in Florida, he's a chef, and his wife is from Barbados. And so they have all of these great recipes. And so I learned some cooking recipes. Y'all know I don't be cooking like that. But I'm trying. I'm 35 now, and I gotta cook more. You know what I'm saying? I gotta learn how to cook. So I was in the kitchen with the chef, learning about a lot of stuff, and I was wore out. Like, I had to take a nap, and I wasn't even doing the heavy labor, but I had to take a nap before the food was ready. Hey, Lexi. Lexi says, "Hey, my Thanksgiving was great, and I received my Standing on Bible sweatshirt today. Thank you for supporting." Y'all, you can get your Standing on Bible, your Kingdom merch, and your Let There Be merch at BriannaWhiteside.com. And if you haven't liked this video, what are you waiting for? Please like the video. Um, Veronica says, I seem to be adding more Let There Be's. Is that okay? If you want to add more Let There Be to your list, be my guest. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you just make sure to recite them every day. But if you want to continue adding, I don't really see anything wrong with that. Or you can say or if you don't want to overdo it this time around, you can start a new Let There Be for 40 days come January 1st. So you can do this however many times a year you want to. Just corporately, we just do it the last 40 days of the year. Y'all, we literally have 30. How many days we got left in this year? 31. 31 days left in this year. How y'all feeling about that? Because tomorrow is December 1st. How are you all feeling about having 31 days left in 2024? Right? Um, I look back over this year. Let me tell y'all where I was this time last year. And I think I've told y'all, but it's so fascinating to how quickly time moves, right? And how things may change, even though nothing changes at the same time. And so this time last year, I had just come back from Chicago. Y'all know the story. I just came back from Chicago because I wasn't okay. Like I was really struggling with the decision that God was asking me to do to leave my career. I was struggling. I was struggling mentally, like greatly mentally. And I remember my mom saying, "Come home, come home." Now I never, you know, go home for Thanksgiving. It's generally a Christmas thing, but I remember her saying distinctly that year, "Come home." And I remember going home, still in this like brain fog, still just depressed, if I could say that. And I slept the entire time I was in Chicago. And I think I was only there like 3 days. But I slept, which let you know that I wasn't getting any rest. I was so restless last year. Like I had no peace, zero peace. And I had no peace I was wrestling with God, trying to, obey. And I didn't have peace. And so I want to kind of say, you won't always have peace in something that God is telling you to do. And I know that's kind of like a Christian myth, right? We're like, oh, if there's the peace of God, then that's what you're supposed to do, or that's what you're supposed to do. That's not always true. Some things that God asks you to do, you won't have peace about it. You won't, because some things are just contrary to to what you want, right? Contrary to your desires. And there becomes a battle of wills. There becomes a battle of wills. And so I was really struggling to submit my will under to his will, right? Submit my desire and my wants and my timeline and what I wanted to do and everything. I was struggling to submit all of that to him. And I had zero peace about it. Zero peace. Now I probably have like 75% peace, but we're almost 1 year later. And so now, it's taken me such a long time. But last year, this time, me leading this challenge, me encouraging people and standing up like we're let there be in, I had zero peace. I was not resting. And now I know now I'm on the other side of that, or kind of on the other side of it. I know how important peace is, your peace of mind. You don't know how important your peace of mind is until you don't have it. Until you don't have it, right? And I'm really just grateful for the fact of that, you know, I'm not in that depressive state because I was there up until from September to September of 2024. From a year. A year. I was there for a year, right? And I'm thinking back at that time last year, and I'm comparing it to this moment in time, because sometimes we just don't look at like the small things that God does for us and the small things that He helps us through, right? Because we don't see the big thing. But think back to where you were last year. Are you the same person that you were this time last year? And if you are not, give yourself a round of applause, because you have come so much further. You have done so much. And sometimes we like to discredit, like, oh, that's nothing. I didn't do nothing, anything big, right? If you're not in the same mental state that you were last year, you've done something big. If you're not still making bad decisions that got you to a certain place in your life, and you're not making those decisions, you're choosing wisely or differently every year, every day, you're doing a big thing, right? Sometimes we want to just say, oh, it's nothing grand, but look at you. Look at look at how far you've come. Remember when you doubted yourself. Remember when you thought you wasn't going to get over this part of the story. Remember, like, put yourself back in that place of where you were. And now look at you. You've done so much, even if it doesn't look like what you wanted it to look like. Because sometimes we have these lofty goals, y'all. And I know that we think the change of a calendar year is ultimately a change of a season, and it's not always the truth. The calendar can change and you can still be in the same season. And that is the frustrating part, because it feels like you're not moving. It feels like you may be in this like holding pattern. It feels like, nothing is moving forward for you. But there are subtle changes that generally happen under the surface that They're so micro that you're not even aware that they're happening until you look up and you're like, huh, I didn't realize that I'm not this way anymore. I didn't realize that, I don't think like this. I didn't realize that I'm not still crying over this thing. Like, yeah, this thing hurt, and yeah, it may still irritate you, but you're not at the beginning of that pain anymore. And so I want everyone, I know we have 31 days left. 31 days left. And I know people are starting already to look to 2025. But if you don't deal with 2024 and what's left in 2024, you may not be prepared for 2025. And just because we get into the new calendar year does not mean that your season is over. I pray to God that this season is over for me. But even if it's not, I still have to show up and be in this season and finish this season well. And so I know sometimes, the hype in Christian circles or in the world in general is like new year, new me. No. Sometimes you're going to have a new year and you're going to be the same you on the surface, but underneath there will be subtle changes happening that will ultimately change your reality, maybe in Q2 of next year, maybe in Q3, right? But we have to be so hyper aware of what's going on in our own lives that we don't start to like maybe compare of what's going on in other people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're in this new season, they get this stuff, blah, 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 blah. But you don't know how long their last season lasted, right? Was their last season 5 years? Was it like, do you want to go through what they went through? Right? Sometimes I am guilty of that too. Sometimes I'm like, dang, like, God, I'm out here fighting for my life sometimes, right? I'm out here trying to do the right thing. And like, you still got me in this ghetto season. I don't want to be in this ghetto season. And then I have to remember your journey is not their journey. If we're believing that God is going to do a new thing, you can't expect him to do the same thing that he did for them. I know we like to say that, like, I seen what you done for others, so I know you can do it for me. He may not do that for you. He's probably not going to show up the same way that he showed up for somebody else. So you may be believing like, oh, I'm believing that he's going to do the same thing that he did for her, for me. It may be a similar thing, but it may not be the same thing. And then as a result of kind of blindly idolizing someone's testimony, you miss out on what God is showing you, because he may say, no, I'm not doing that for you. I understand that you want it, but I'm not doing that. You know how to deal with the no's of God. The no's of God are painful. And I know we like to say he's going to do it. And yes, the answer is yes and amen. Sometimes the answer is no. No, and still obey. No, I'm not doing this. No, you're not getting out of this season. No, you still have to do this. No, you still have to show up. No, 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 no. And that's the hard part of the journey, because you're doing the stuff, right? But as we journey with God, we realize that we don't get to call the shots. We realize that we are at the mercy of God every day. The mercy of God at every day. Every day. And you can feel how you feel about it. And that's fair. And I think it's really good to say how you feel. I think it's really good to admit that you are angry about something, or admit that you don't understand why your journey is so difficult and has been taking such a long time, and all of these things. It's okay. I feel like it's healthy to admit those things, because if you don't, you're trying to pray over it. You're trying to basically spiritual bypass. And that is what believers do when we don't want to deal with something. We try to go the hyper religious route, and the problem is still the problem. And so you're trying to basically gaslight God in a way. Like, oh yeah, I'm amazing. I love this. And he's looking at your heart like, I hear your heart murmuring. I hear your heart in pain. I hear your heart's desire. And I know that all too well, because I tried to spiritual bypass a lot. Maybe because they were saying, They were saying, people would say, what would they say? Give God, you need to praise him anyway, praise him anyway. And sometimes praising God is crying. Sometimes your tears speak a better praise than your lips ever could, right? And the Bible tells you that he keeps record, or he bottles up your tears in heaven, right? And so what I've found most helpful in this journey of walking on water, shall I say, or moving by faith, walking by faith, is being honest with God about stuff, right? Saying, okay, I don't like this. Help me today. I need you to help me today. You know what I mean? And I know sometimes we feel like we've said it enough. We've said it enough. But when it impacts your prayers, when it impacts the way you showed up, you haven't said it enough. You haven't said it enough. Right? Like, you haven't said it enough to him. Like, express it. Because sometimes, here's what I also found. And this was a therapy thing, but it also has worked in a sense of communicating with God the truth. So in therapy, when I was going, my therapist used to ask me a question, and I would give her the answer at first, and then she'll ask me that question again, and I'm like, girl, like, I just gave you the answer. And she's like, no, I want you to think about it this time, because ultimately when we're asked a question, we give a surface level response. So she would ask me again, and I'll give a more in-depth response, and then she'll ask me the third time, and the third time we actually get to the heart of the matter, right? Because you can have a surface level feeling or surface level reaction to something, but that may not be the seed of the thing. That may not be the root of what it is you're saying. And so when I have conversations with God, it's generally a cyclical thing, because sometimes he may be trying to get to an answer or get me to see something that I don't see if I don't say anything, right? I can't step into the revelation if we don't have the conversation. And sometimes I'm so guarded because of the hardness of the journey that it takes some prying, and it takes some massaging of my heart, or massaging of my will, to actually unload and get to the heart of what it really is. Like, what's the root of this thing? And I know sometimes we like be like, oh, it's unbelief. Sometimes it's not always unbelief. And what is unbelief, and what don't you believe, or who don't you believe in? Like, that is such a compact term that we will have to spend time unpacking. And so I don't want anyone to be at this moment, because y'all know when we get into the last month, people get reflective. When we start to inch into the new year, people get real reflective. Around birthdays, real reflective, right? And I think sometimes the enemy uses that against us, uses that because we may have been lying this whole year. But the moment we start to get reflective and we realize, I thought this was going to look different for me, or this journey has been longer than what I anticipated, or I'm really excited about this thing, right? Until we get to those moments where we can be reflective, we won't be honest. And I think sometimes we don't realize that we're not fully being honest with ourselves. I know that was true about me when I went through I went through some therapy sessions a few years ago. I was lying to myself, and I didn't even know it. Like, I had built up so many, I guess, maybe defenses to survive, because y'all know I'm from the hood, right? I'm from Chicago. And you have to become a certain person to survive in the inner city. And as a result of, you know, um, going to public schools and being bullied a lot and all of these things, and living in the hood and around gangs, like all of the stuff that I experienced, I had started to armor up. And I didn't realize it just became part of my personality. And I thought that was my personality for the longest time, right? And then, as you migrate, you leave your hometown, and I've lived in a lot of places by myself, and I travel a lot. Um, you have to also be on alert, and some type of the suspicion becomes part of your personality sometimes, because you have to always be diligent, right? You have to always be diligent. And over time, I realized that I had started to morph into who I needed to be to survive. But the survival part of me started to create certain lies about my reality that weren't true. But I didn't realize that they were lies about my reality because I had lived with them for so long. So I thought that they were absolute truths. And then when we started to do like this unpacking work and God started to like be like, all right, Bree, I've allowed you to operate this way for a while. But now who you are cannot sustain you for for who I need you to be next year, this year, 6 months, all of these things. And so when we started to unpack, right, he started to strip me. And y'all know that stripping process, baby, crying, spitting, farting, okay? That stripping process. So when he started to strip me of these things that became me, my titles, my accolades, my toughness, my matter of fact attitude, my black and white, like all of these things started to like imagine him ripping off papers, right? If y'all ever watched Edward Scissorhands, that used to be one of my favorite movies as a kid. And y'all know when he's cutting this stuff up, cutting people hair, that's God stripping me, right? And when he started to strip me, I'm like, hold on, like I need some of this stuff. But the issue was that I was also using some of those defenses in our walk because I don't know you like that. I don't know you. I serve you. I worship you. I believe in you. I don't know you like that though. I don't know you in this capacity that you're trying to show me. I don't know you like that, so I don't trust you. So when he started to strip me, it was like a forceful thing of you're about to be so vulnerable right now that you're going to have to confront yourself in a different way. And confronting myself in a way that is incredibly vulnerable was not something that I was comfortable with. Like, and it's just me. No one else is seeing this stripping. I am the only one experiencing the stripping and the hardship. But I am so uncomfortable with the vulnerability that I see in my own life and the holes in the stories that I had constructed over time that I was like, I've been kind of living a lie, right? I've been living a lie. And it was a beautiful lie. Don't get me wrong, y'all. It was a nice lie. But when you live in a glass house, you can't afford for people to throw stones, right? And I realized that I was living a lie. And I think these last few months of my life has been me trying to learn about who I am, absent of all of the things that I've always had, absent of all of the safeguards, absent of all of the safety nets, absent of all the validation, absent of everything that I built my entire life on. I've been having to live a different truth, not live in my truth, but live God's truth. And when I tell y'all, it's, I think it is the most uncomfortable thing, but I've never felt as alive as I do right now. And here's what I mean. Sometimes you could go through life extremely numb. Has anyone else ever had that feeling? Like you go through life just on autopilot every day, same thing over and over again. You don't even have to think about it. You wake up, it's clockwork. This. You're on autopilot. You don't have to think. Your brain can take you to work without you even paying attention, right? And when you're living your life on this autopilot, you're not really living it. You are cruising. And I was cruising and I had a good pace in cruising. And then God's like, let's turn this car around. As a matter of fact, let's get off this street. Let's get off this highway. We're going to take you on another highway. And on another highway, y'all know how you say, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm in a passenger seat and I'm holding on to my wig because we're in a convertible, right? My wig going to fly off. I'm scared. You driving too fast. I don't really understand what's happening here. And, it's a lot. But you feel that rush. You feel every bit of the journey. You feel every bit of it. And it's the feeling that is so uncomfortable because it is in feeling where you know I'm living this thing out. I'm actually walking this thing out. I'm actually traveling this road. I feel every hit. I feel every bruise. It's cold outside. I feel when it rains. You feel every bit of it. And for a long time, I demonized the feeling. I demonized that experience. Like, I hate this. I hate this. Because now I realized for so long I wasn't living, right? I was literally surviving. I was literally A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, I know next, 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 next. But when you are following God and you get to this point of now it's time for you to live out his life for you feel every turn, every shift, every subtle thing. You're hyper aware. You A lot's going on, and you feel like sometimes you can feel unstable. You can feel on shaky ground. Like, am I losing my mind here? Am I losing my mind? No, you're not losing your mind. For the first time, you are aware of you. You are aware of your feelings. You are aware of thoughts. You are aware of things you've held on to. You are aware of every single thing that is either holding you up or that is letting you down. And it is in that feeling process that we begin to be made. We're molded, we're mashed, we're shaped, right? We're formed. But it hurts. It feels different because we've already done this before, so you thought. But when God tells us, I want to invite you into the abundant life with me, what I realized is that I had on Disney glasses. I had on Disney glasses when I was believing for the abundant life, right? I thought it was, oh, it's just gonna be great. Rainbows and unicorns, right? The abundant life is fully aware life. You're aware of everything. You become abundance in everything, and it's not just the positive things, it's also those things that make you uncomfortable. They may not be negative, but they will be uncomfortable. And in my mind, this whole thing, I'm like, no, you said abundance. This don't look like abundance, but it is abundance. It's abundance in feeling. It's abundance in awareness. You are aware for the first time in your life. You're living. You're thriving. And thriving doesn't always look like thriving because we've been so trained to survive and coast. Survive and coast. But since when has any history maker made it on survive and coast? They have felt the adrenaline of confronting things that they may not have that were bigger than them. They've known what it felt like to have it all, to lose it all, to hold on to the little they got. Every history maker, every hero's journey, every hero's quest has had this feeling that it feels like this may not work. This may not work. But even though this may not work, I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to try it out, right? Without any guarantee, because your safety net is a guarantee. Everything that you have depended on is a guarantee. That requires no thought for you. I'm sitting in this chair right now because there's a guarantee. Now, if it break, I don't know. But I'm sure of it because it has not, I've seen it hold up before. I've seen it do all these things before. But when God invites you into thriving, you haven't seen it before. You may have seen what other people have categorized as thriving, but you haven't seen thriving for you yet. You haven't seen this journey. When y'all know I was an English major, and in high school we had to read this poem called "The Road Less Traveled" by Robert Frost, and it was basically talking about choosing two roads. It was a crossroads in front of the speaker of the poem, and he had to choose. Do I choose the road that is already trodden, that you can see the footsteps, or do I choose the road that is less traveled? Do I? And sometimes we have been conditioned to go the beaten path. because people have already done it. You already have that blueprint. You already know A plus B plus C equals D. But I remember when we came into 2025, I said the systems that we have tried to use in previous years will not work this year. Do y'all remember that? Do y'all remember me saying that at the top of the year? The systems that have already been in place, I said we're going to break. They're not going to yield the same results that they yielded for other people, because those systems had already been used. Those systems were in a large sense outdated, right? And if God is doing a new thing, we like to say that. And if God is, the last going to be first and the first going to be last, don't you think that's going to require a different system? And you're going to have to come up with this system, and you're going to have to work this system. And systems don't look glamorous until they start working. But it is the thankless parts of this journey that people get to see at the end. It is the beginning is hard, it's ghetto, we all hate it. We hate it because it doesn't yield any result. You're working, and you're not getting any ROI in the beginning because you're building out a system and a structure. And the system and the structure may not be for right now. If you're building something this year, it may not be for 2024. It may be for 2026. But in 2024, you have to work it. You have to refine it. You have to craft it. Even if you don't get the applause, even if you don't get, the notoriety that you want, even if the money doesn't come through, it doesn't mean that it's not coming through. It means that God may have given you a blueprint for something that is needed in 2 years. Are you going to be faithful to sustain this idea now and develop this idea now? Because just because it's not time right now does not mean there's nothing there. Think about a baby. The baby is in the womb. For a few months, you don't even see the mother's stomach get big, depending on the mother. Some women can be 6 months pregnant and you wouldn't even know it, right? Depending on how big this thing it is they're carrying. But there comes a time, just because you don't see this baby on the inside of the mother's womb does not mean that there is not something there. And then suddenly what happens? This mother has this baby after 9 months and everyone celebrates. Everyone, congratulations. But the mother was growing this child on her own in secret this whole time. No one saw it. No one saw it. No one saw the shifts. No one saw, the uncomfortable nights. No one saw the tears. No one saw anything. She was building this thing, building this baby that will be a full human in a few months. I know we're not talking about a physical baby, what I'm talking to you now, but you are carrying a baby, an idea, a product, a word, a message, a book, a teaching. You are doing something. And God gave you the idea in this moment to start working on it before it's time for it, in whatever season it's time for it in. And I know that's frustrating because I walked that path a lot, right? I walked that path of, you gave me this idea. I have stewarded it. I've refined it. You mean to tell me it's still not time? But there's a scripture that says something about God not giving you, like something to the effect of, will God not give you a child and not allow you to birth, or something like that. Like, I won't give you something and not allow you to fully conceive it, right? That would be crazy. So that lets us know that there is a time for your thing to work, but we get frustrated because it's not time for it to work right now. Trust me, I'm talking to me too. But the test is, are you going to see it through? Are you going to continue to build it? Are you going to continue to do it? Because of course, y'all know what we're going to say. I'm going to Noah. Noah looked stupid until it started to rain. Because I don't think that it rained at that point in the Bible. Because even when God created the oceans, the waters of the earth, the Bible says that the waters came up from out of the ground, not from the sky. It came from out of the ground. So it came from the bottom up. or out of the earth. Um, but Noah looked crazy all those years he was building it. But there came a time when he was going to need something. And what he was building was going to not just save him, but save so many other people connected to him, as well as creation, right? Same thing for you. What you're building, what God gave you, and even what you have decided you're not building, but you know God gave you that idea a few years ago. And you just said, I'm not doing that. I don't know how to do it, or I'm gonna get to it tomorrow, and tomorrow never came. Then it's the next year, next year, next year. The idea was good when he gave it to you. The idea is still good now. And the idea is not just for you, it's to set you up, but also your children and your children's children, and even people in your family, right? But if you don't start and sustain it and build it and work it, and you're going to work it imperfectly, y'all. I don't try to be perfect out here. I really don't care about perfection. I don't. Because perfection hinders people from getting stuff done. You want it to look like somebody who got a $15 million budget and you got ChatGPT and Canva with no team. So you want it to look, you want to have a champagne budget or champagne idea, but you really have a beer budget. And you're allowing your beer budget, that's probably not the best analogy for what I'm talking about, but y'all know what I mean. You're allowing your beer budget to stop you from potentially one day getting to having a champagne budget so that you can produce at the full scale of what you want to produce. You're allowing what you don't have to stop you from using what you do have. And then you mad because people who don't have nowhere near the know-how you got have somehow surpassed you. That's improper conditioning. That's improper conditioning. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. God never asked you to be perfect, and people don't want you to be perfect. They don't. They don't want you to be perfect. They want you to be you, and they want you to show up, and you got to give them an opportunity to accept what you have. It don't matter what other people got, because some people, you can be selling the same thing, right? And y'all know the analogy of water, go down the water aisle, they sell them the same product. It's just a different name and a different label. So when people say the market is oversaturated, that's not true. Or this don't look as good as such and such. So what? Who said it had to be good as such and such? Who said it had to look a specific way? Because God already knew you didn't have specific certain things when he gave you the idea. Who said that? Right? And so when y'all see me show up, I'm quick to say I don't have no job. Because I don't have a job. I gave up my career. So everything I'm doing now I have time. At first I had the capital, right? Now I got to scale back, right, and be a good steward of not having a job. Starting tomorrow will be 6 months. Now I got to scale back, and now I have to use the mind of Christ. Now I have to use the tools that are at my disposal. Now I have to figure out, okay, let me tap into this creative vein. Let me tap into the creative ideas and the witty inventions. Are they the best? No. Do they generate capital? Yes. Yes, they do. Right? And so many people are sitting around just not using what they have in their hands, just sleeping on themselves because they feel like, oh, my light went out. And this thing is charging. It's always a hate in the room. Anyway, y'all can still see me. People are literally sleeping on themselves year after year, day after day, saying it's not gonna work. It don't look like theirs. I don't have the audience they have. One day they didn't have the audience. You think some people just woke up and just had the audience? No. They didn't have the audience that they have right now, but they showed up and they put themselves out there and they did something that, they were passionate about. And eventually people started coming, people started listening. Then they had the audience. Then they had the team. It's a step-by-step process, y'all. I know we like to believe God for miracles, and there's nothing wrong with believing miracles, but think about it this way. In a plain sense, and this is the human explanation, miracles are like a lottery system. We don't get to control who gets a miracle. If your name comes up before God, God decides it's her day to get a miracle, you're gonna get this miracle. We all have our name in the lottery. We all got our number, right? They're all in the hat. One day God's gonna pick a number and say, this person is due for a miracle. But in the meantime, as you're waiting on a miracle, why won't you allow time and opportunity to collide? As if I think it's Ecclesiastes 9:11 tells you that time and chance happens to them both. That's a scripture. The race isn't given to the swift, battle to the strong. But the end part says, but time and chance happen to them both. As you're waiting on your miracle, why not create opportunities and moments where time and chance can intersect to create a miracle moment? Why won't you do what you're supposed to do as you're waiting? Because who knows? Who knows which one of these things is going to hit, or all of them going to hit at the same time? And that's the scripture in the Bible, right? I think it's like sow your seed in the morning and don't let your hands be idle in the evening. Something to that effect. And it says basically do everything that you can do, because you don't know which one of these things will be prosperous or all of them will do equally well. That means that there may be an opportunity where time and chance intersect, where everything takes off. That's why I'm not worried. Like, y'all see me doing stuff, I'm like, one of these things gonna hit, or all of them gonna hit at the same time, or they're gonna hit one on one. But I'm not accepting defeat. I'm not accepting a mediocre lifestyle. I didn't work hard to get a mediocre lifestyle like I did, and I'm not going to accept one, because now I'm walking on water with God. Absolutely not. I paid my dues in a mediocre lifestyle club. I don't want my membership in that club no more. I don't want my membership. I have pulled my membership. You know what I mean? But I am allowing myself to say, here is the work of my hands, God. Here is the work of my hands. I have done this, this, and this. All of these things are here before you. When you feel the time is right, do your big one, because everything is in place. My structures will not break. My systems will not break. The products are here. The merchandise is here. The book is here. The lives are here. The teachings are here. All of these things are here. All of these things are built. I've built an ecosystem around myself, not around what someone else is doing. I don't create commentary on what other people are doing. I don't care about what they're doing. I don't care about what's going on in the world. I am creating an ecosystem around my name, the name that God gave me, the name that gives him glory every day. So when you decide that one of these things is about to take off, I believe that when he blows on one, it's going to pull the rest of them up. Right? And everything is going to have a chance to crop up. Why? Because I worked even when people wasn't looking. I worked even when people weren't buying anything from me. I worked. I like it, so I'm going to put it out here because I think it's a good idea. Time will tell, but I think this thing is a good idea. It may be a premature idea, but I still think it's a good idea, and I've given it a chance to thrive. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yes, God will align you. Yes, God will highlight you. But do you have something for him to align you with? Do you have something for him to highlight that will actually change your life? Or are you just believing God for what? I'm believing God to change my life. How would that look? If God changed your life, how would that look? Can you explain what that would look like for you? Sometimes we don't do enough to actually unpack what it is that we're actually saying, right? We don't give ourselves enough time to think things through, to think critically. If God blew on your life and changed your life by December 31st, what would that look like for you? What would be the process? How would you pinpoint and say, this thing changed my life? And how is he going to change your life? Have you done something? Have you showed something? Have you put yourself out there? Have you just turned on your phone and start talking, sharing your journey with people? I've gotten away from that because I'm really an introvert, and you know, I people wears me out. I won't even lie. But when I was sharing my financial journey, right? And I know a lot of people are new to this channel, but when I was sharing my financial journey on how I got out of consumer debt, $10,000 of consumer debt in 8 months, I was sharing my financial journey. When I was sharing how I saved my first 10K, then the next year saved my first 20K with the stock market, and how I was learning all of these things, they were journeying with me. And I was like, I'm just doing this, so I'm going to catalog this for me. But guess what starts to happen? People want to see, is this thing going to work for her? And it did work. It did work. How do y'all think I learned how to trade options? It was in the system of me getting myself out of consumer debt. It did work. It did. And they were literally, as the Bible says, we are living epistles. They were literally reading the book of Brianna. If you go follow me on Instagram or TikTok, the book of Brianna is my name. Hebrews 10:7, Jesus says, lo, I come in the volume of the book that is written of me to do your will, O God. We are all books in heaven, or we were words in heaven that God gave an opportunity to live an expression on earth. So people are literally reading your book right now. Everything you post, what you say, how you show up, they're reading the book of you every day, right? Are you giving them that opportunity to read that book? And sometimes we just say, like, oh, yeah, sometimes you're the only God, or the only church that people will go to. Not God, but the only church that people will go to. True. But it's not just a spiritual thing. It's also a financial thing. It's a mental thing. It's an emotional thing. Right. It encompasses everything. It encompasses everything. And I think that we should give ourselves more chances and opportunities to thrive, and not just say, I'm waiting on God. Because how long are you waiting? And did he tell you to wait? Or did you just take that offensive position? Did you take yourself out the game to sit on the sideline and say, I'm waiting on God because I'm tired? Y'all, I'm tired too. Every day. I would work 14 hours days. I say this all the time. I've never worked as hard as I work in my life right now. I've never worked this hard. And I got 3 degrees. I've never worked this hard. But some of the hard work comes from pulling something from one realm to another, right? The process of me understanding something for myself, but trying to translate it into a language that other people who didn't hear what God heard me say to me, translate it to hear, or translate it in a way that they will understand, that will make it palatable. I go through that every day that I teach this challenge, trying to make it clear and palatable, because it doesn't matter that I just understand it. If you don't understand it, I have not done my job, right? And so you're going to have to work, but there is no reason that secular people who don't believe in your God, don't have the Holy Spirit, don't have the cheat code, don't care nothing about your God, are more successful than the rightful heirs to the kingdom. It doesn't make sense. And I'm talking to me too, because I can be on these lives a little bit more, right? My introvertedness does take over sometimes. And if y'all haven't liked the video, please like the video. But I'm talking to me too, because I can get on live more. I can start talking more. Do I like it? No. I like to be rubbing my feet together and thinking about something and writing something, right? But I can do more. I understand. I understand that I could do more. And I have to decide to do more. Even though I'm doing all of these things, it doesn't mean that I'm going to drop it. That means that, Brianna, okay, strategy. You need a strategy. Do you need to? So here's the strategy. Here's a real life example, since we're in a Let There Be challenge. I said that since I only teach on Mondays, that I wanted to at least do an additional live every week, right? An additional live every week. So that's just what I'm doing right now, a check-in, a quick chat. Well, I thought it was going to be quick, and I'm here to 50 minutes. But this is me saying the last time these folks hear from me verbally is on Monday, and I don't think that's good enough. So let me add another day. That is a strategy, y'all. It may not seem like a lot to y'all, but it's a lot to me. It's a lot to me. But that's me working in, right, a strategy, working within the structure already built and expanding it. We want to quote Jabez, enlarge my territory. Well, you're going to have to start to be able to stretch more. You want God to enlarge your territory, but your boundaries are so ironclad. Your boundaries are so strict that you don't have no wiggle room. You don't have no wiggle room. So how is God going to enlarge your territory and you won't move a bit? So for me, it's you're going to have to do another live, Brianna. I'm just back in town from visiting family in Florida. And then I went to my friend's pop-up event. She just released a new product for her line. So I was out peopling, and I said, "Ooh, I'm tired." But you said that you were going to do an additional live every week. Here I am, not knowing what I'm really going to talk about, but letting the Holy Spirit lead me and guide me into the conversation. Not trying to have everything under my control, but letting him do what he feels is necessary for him to do today. Allowing him to move in the way that he wants to move. And that is just a simple strategy that I said, okay, you're going to have to do more. This is me doing more. You only need to be 1% better every day, y'all. I said this in a quick video when I was at the gym. If you recite your decrees for 40 days, at the end of the year, you are 40% better already. There's 365 days in a year. 365 days in a year. Your goal is to only be 1% better every day. That means at the end of that year, you will be 365% better. All you have to do is focus on the day. The Bible tells you to teach us. It says, teach us to number our days so that we may have a heart of wisdom. There is power in a day. We all have the same 24 hours. The same 24 hours. But what some people do choose to dedicate their 24 hours to may be distinctively different than what somebody else decides to dedicate their 24 hours to. When people in the church world are saying in January, we're going to start this, and all the conferences start to taper off by early November, guess what Brianna's doing? We're gearing up for the last 40 days. So when people stop and start looking to 2024, I am in mode. I am in work for 40 days, right? Your system may not be their system. The way your clock may not be their clock. Your calendar may not be their calendar, but will you give yourself a chance to feel this feeling, feel this life? Feel the expression of who you are becoming. Uncomfortable, yes. You don't like it, I know. It's ghetto, yes. You wish there was another way, but the other way was the road already traveled. The other way was what was. And you may be one of the people who are emerging as what is next, or what is now. Not even next. What is now? How do you know that your time and season is not upon you right now? How do you know? You don't know, because you don't even know what it's supposed to feel like. We have this Disney idea of what it's supposed to feel like, right? It's supposed to feel like fireworks, confetti, right? But you don't know what your moment really feels like. It may feel like more responsibility. It may feel like stretching, and you're in your moment. You're in your season. You're at the beginning of elevation. You don't know. That's why you have to get up every day and take every opportunity that your day gives you. Every day, you're going to have to seize the day because you don't get that day back. You are born in the season or in the decade that the world needed you most. You don't get the previous decades or the previous generation's opportunities. You don't get the next generation's opportunities. You only get your generation's opportunities. And so many of us are not using the opportunities that we have. And the crazy thing is, we're usually born on the cusp, on the tail end of the future generate on the past generation and the cusp of the new one. So we can pull inspiration from both if you're in that middle ground. You can pull inspiration from both and use that to synthesize your generation's influence. But for some reason we don't, and also in Christian circles, like I don't understand why we're not as far. And I know warfare, we can say warfare because that does have something to do with it. Trust me, I'd be fighting for my life out here, and I know y'all do too. But at the end of the day, if God had already said that you're more than a conqueror, he didn't even say you were a conqueror. He said you're more than that. And he already said that you will be able to run through troops and leap over walls. He's already said that I told you to have dominion. So every excuse that we may put before him is really a non-factor because he's already said, I've given you everything you need. Rise to the occasion. I'm not doing nothing else for you. Rise to the occasion. And sometimes rising to the occasion is doing the thing that we don't want to do, that he already told us to do 3-4 years ago, that we put off because we said it wasn't the right time, or we didn't have enough resources, or we didn't feel comfortable. You're not going to ever feel comfortable succeeding. Success is, and take it from someone who was at the top of going up for a promotion. You never feel comfortable in success. You never do, because you're always aware of where you came from and the possibility of getting back there. And you're also aware of the goal. You're aware of two timelines or two different experiences. And that's partially because God has set eternity in our hearts, which means that we are aware of the past, we are aware of the future, and we're also aware of our present moment. We're aware of all of these things simultaneously. That is not an easy thing to do. That is not an easy thing to carry, right? It's not easy. But look at you carrying it. Look at how far you've come. Look at you at your big age, right? Look at everything that you have overcome. Look at everything that you have done, even if it's not what someone else has done. Remind yourself of who you are and what you can do and whose image you are made in. Remind yourself that you were already given dominion. Remind yourself that you are already higher than the wildest thoughts you can ever think. You haven't even began to think God's wildest thoughts about you. I know as Black folks, and I know I don't just have a primarily Black audience, but we like to say, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams. What is God's wildest dream of you? Are you God's wildest dream? Because he dreamed you up, wrote out the book, because it tells you he knows the end from the beginning, or the beginning from the end, one of the two. So he already knows your end. You have a destined end. And you don't know his wildest dream because you won't flip the page and you won't go to the next chapter because it's going to require something of you. Sacrifice. You're going to give it up. You're going to give up that comfort. You're going to give up some things you like. You're going to give it up. Your life is not your own. You're going to give it up. If you don't give it up, you're going to stagnate. Your life is going to start to stutter. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to have this nagging feeling of the future saying, you're supposed to be further than this. You're supposed to be further than this. Come this way. Come this way. You're supposed to be here by now. You're supposed to be here by now. The future starts to talk to people, wooing them into God's idea of them, right? But when we start to journey, we walking this thing out, and then reality starts to hit what this thing really is about, we're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I won't. I don't know, because you only showed me the next chapter. You haven't showed me the end of my book. You showed me maybe 3 chapters ahead, but you haven't shown me everything. And I don't know. I'm tired. I don't know if it's worth it. Blah, 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 blah. And so many people leave this planet without ever experiencing the life that God originally had for them. And wouldn't it be a shame if you went to heaven and you saw this movie screen before you and God showed you the life that he had ordained for you and then reminded you of the life you lived? Wouldn't it be a shame if you came up, you've only accomplished 30% of what he had in mind for you? You only experienced 15% because you thought you had to have everything in order, because you thought that, you know, you had to have so much money. You thought that circumstances had to be perfect for you to move. Veronica says, I would be so embarrassed. Yeah. And you would be like, I slept on myself. I didn't even give myself a chance. You didn't even try. I have a friend. Hold on, I'm drink some water. I have a friend, and he talks about girls who he may see on the internet, and they're like 18, 19, saying that they want to be OnlyFans models. Okay. And he's like, they 18 and 19, and you didn't even try. You didn't even try to become anything. You didn't even try to give yourself a chance. And I'm like, yeah, they didn't even try, because that is the path that has been charted. That is the path that has said, this is all you can do. This is all you can do. And we don't have to just think of it in a category of OnlyFans models. What about your life? A lot of people, millennials, have been told, you go to school, you get a good job, and you retire, because that is what the previous generation had access to. But then now we seeing Gen Z become millionaires on TikTok, dancing, laughing, kikiing, talking, showing their outfits, just out here becoming millionaires. I'm not telling you to do that. Just be out here, without wisdom. But I'm just giving you an example to say the opportunities are different. And as long as we keep trying to fit within the previous mode, we're going to always come up short. We're going to always not have what we're supposed to have, because you won't even give yourself a chance to try. You won't even give yourself a chance. And I know that the educational system, of which I was a part of, told you from the kindergarten age to color inside the lines. Don't color outside the lines, little Johnny. You got to color inside the lines, because this is how it's acceptable, and this is what makes it pretty, and this is what I don't care about your imagination, Johnny. I don't care about your creativity, Johnny. You have to conform with what we say is acceptable. It's pretty. Color in these lines. And from that moment on, Johnny is coloring in the lines. And he do things because he's still coloring in the lines. At 20, he's still coloring in the lines. And God's like, these lines ain't gonna work. These lines have become boundaries. As a matter of fact, they've locked you out of what I'm trying to get you to. But for so long, for 20 years, Johnny is used to coloring inside the lines. So God's like, I need you to come out this line. Johnny's like, because for 20 years, I've been socialized to do this one thing. And this is all I've been able to do. Right? And I was listening to, a few years ago, I was listening to someone, and she was in a room with a billionaire. And she said, this billionaire was talking big ideas. And she told the billionaire, you can't do that. Now, this is her first time talking to a billionaire. You can't do that. No one's ever done that. You can't do that. And he says to her, some of us color inside the lines, and some of us create the lines that others color inside of. And wouldn't it be a shame that you started coloring inside of lines that someone else created for you, instead of coloring inside the lines that God gave you? The lines of your life, the lines that you're wired and you were created to color inside of. Wouldn't it be a shame if you started coloring within these smaller margins? when you had the whole world as your canvas. You've bound yourself to an idea of creation. And by creation, I mean other humans. You've bound yourself to their opinions. You've bound yourself to what people said was acceptable. When I resigned, y'all, and I was trying to explain myself to the dean, and I didn't have language for what I was doing because I also felt that I was out of my mind, um, resigning, she said to me, no one's ever turned down tenure. And if y'all don't know what tenure is, it's job security for the rest of your life. Once you pass, we're on a 6-year probationary period once we get an academic job. So we are assistant professors. We do the same thing that everybody else do. We just don't have the job security. It's just an academic hazing ritual that higher education makes professors go through. It's really stupid and problematic. But anyway, that's the system of academia. And I was going up, I would have been tenured. I would have gotten a decision in October. Whew. I would have gone up for tenure in March. I would have been tenured in October, and I would have started next school year as an associate professor. That still stings right now. But she said, Brianna, no one turns down tenure. And I'm sitting in this lady office, eyes puffed up, because I was crying that morning. And I said, I know. No one turns this down. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Because getting an academic job is hard. It's not easy. And I'm walking away right when I'm about to go up for a promotion. I know no one turns this down. Just like I knew no one turned down Princeton when I got into their theological program and God told me, no, don't go. No one turns this down. No one does this. No one does that until you do. No one has ever done it until you do it. No one's ever had the experience because they've never done it. Think about Peter walking on water. No one has ever walked on water but Jesus until Peter does it. Until he gets out of the boat. Until he decides, I'm going to try. And even if I sink doing this thing, I'm going to try. But I have to try it because you said I could try it. You said I could do it. You gave me permission, right? And sometimes it's going to feel like you're sinking. Sometimes it's going to feel like this ain't going to work. But you have to get up every day and work it anyway. Just because it doesn't work today does not mean it's not going to work for you tomorrow and then work for the general public 6 months from now. God may have given you the idea to you because somebody in a boardroom is saying, we need something like this idea that God gave to you. And because God is a God of generations and he cares about generations, he may have communicated the idea to you that someone overseas is looking for and willing to pay top dollar for. We need this thing to work. We need this thing here. We need this. And God gave it to you in seed form. And in seed form, you're like, this ain't nothing. I'm gonna get to this later. I'm gonna do this. And so then there's this void. You never feel the void. You were supposed to fill the void. They were supposed to set you up. But because the seed looks so insignificant, you didn't do anything with it year after year. And yet you prayed to God and asked him for provision. And you asked him, you believe the scripture is going to come. It won't be long now, scripture. Y'all know the scriptures that the church world uses. And you believed all of this stuff. And God said, I gave you the idea already. I gave you the thing. This thing was going to lead to this thing, which was going to lead to this thing, which is going to lead to the breakthrough you've been asking me for. When you break through, it means you break through something. But you got to get close enough to the wall to break through the wall. Sometimes we're here. Sometimes the wall is here. We have to travel to the wall to break through the wall. We can't break through the wall if we still right here because we won't move. And we're just praying. Move, pray, move, pray, move. Because eventually your moving is going to break through the wall. The wall has to break. The wall is not as strong as it appears to be. But we don't try to break through the wall sometimes because we discount the ideas from heaven. And then we get mad because God didn't give me he gave me a gift. He didn't give me a talent. I wanted a talent. I can't say that I'm talented. I'm gifted for sure, but I'm not talented. And sometimes we look at the talented and we admire what they get to do. The comedians, the athletes, all of these people who have talents. But the gifted are equally significant. The gifted are equally significant and equally blessed. But and I'm not talking about manifestation in New Age, but our manifestation of gifting looks different, right? Our manifestation of gifting looks different. We have to be willing, just like the talented have to be willing to give themselves a chance to an opportunity to be fully expressed in the earth. The gifted do too. You're gifted at something. God gave all of us something. You have something. It may be something that you think is what everybody else, has. It don't matter if everybody else has it. There's a ton of water brands and bread brands and hair brand. It don't matter. You're doing the wrong math. You up here trying to do God math, and you're a human. You can't do God math. You can't do God math. You're a human. You can't even think his thoughts. It's above you now. Y'all remember that when it came out a few years ago? It's above me. It's above you. You trying to do stuff that's above you. You worried about stuff that has nothing to do with you. It's none of your business. That's how I wake up sometimes. I'm like, isn't it? How this won't work out is none of my business. I'm going to do my part today. It's none of my business. I'm not going to worry myself with God stuff. This is the Godhead, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, this young y'all. I'm not going to worry myself with that. And the moment when I feel my humanness start to think about it, I have to remind myself, we already gave that to him. We're not worrying about that. That's above you. That's above your pay grade. You have no connections in the areas that you need the connections in. You don't need to worry about that. Don't worry about that. Stay in a child's place. That's how I have to talk to me. Stay in a child's place, Brianna, because how are we going to see the kingdom of heaven? Coming to God as a child. When you come to him as a fully grown adult, he's going to let you be a fully grown adult. You're going to try to figure it out. You're going to spin your wheels and you're not going to come up with nothing. But when you come to him like a child and say, what unique thing have you given me? Am I overlooking it? Like, what did you give me? Because I can identify what you've given everybody else. What have you given me? And it is that thing that you have overlooked and disqualified and said it's nothing. It's nothing. That's the thing. It's something. It's the thing. You have qualified it as nothing, and it is the thing. It's the very thing. When I think about, let's think about it like this. Y'all know I'm a teacher, trained academic, and everyone teaches in academia. We have our area of specialty in higher education. My specialty was science fiction, which is why I'm hyper aware of the spiritual world and spirituality. That was my emphasis. But overall, I taught the whole canon of African American literature from the 1500s to the present day. So I was responsible for a lot of literature and knowing a lot of movements, history, other things. And Being a teacher, you don't you're around your colleagues. All of my colleagues can teach their subject. Everybody. So when I came out of academia and I've been, teaching the kingdom, I'm like, no, I'm teaching and I'm like, okay, my specialty here is the kingdom. Just like my specialty was science fiction, I was studying a particular author. I started studying this author in 2014. She didn't become super popular again until 2018. And I just happened to be graduating with my doctorate degree that year. And my research was sought after and it's been used and it's been cited. And I have tons of scholarly articles about it. But when I started in 2014, people said, don't do that. That's weird. That doesn't have any substance. No one really cares about that. All of these things, right? In 2014, it had no legs. In 2015, in 2018, it was in demand. 4 years, I had to listen to people say, this is not interesting. No one in academia is going to want this thing. They didn't want it until they wanted it, right? Here, outside of academia, I have one specialty. Now I can teach strategy, I can pull strategy, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because I learned how to close read a document in education. I learned how to close read a literature text. And by close read, this is what pastors call exegesis and eisegesis. It really just means closely reading the text in academic terms. I learned the skill of close reading in a different system. So now that I'm able to close read the Bible with the help of the Holy Spirit, which means go beneath the surface, I have a contribution to the kingdom. Is it in full demand? No. Will it be in full demand? The way that the world is going, yeah. The way that things are going, yeah. But I had to begin to look at my academic muscles, the things that I had become very strong in academia, and see how they transferred into a different arena, looking at a different text, right? And at first I was discounting that because I'm like, I'm not a theologian. I don't desire to be either. I'm not this, I'm not that. It doesn't look like the expression of all these other people. But just because that's why they had 12 apostles. That's why they had is it Junius in the New Testament? I don't remember. That's why they had Ananias and Sapphira. That's why they had these different expressions of gifts in the Bible, because you don't need the same people doing the same stuff the same way. You don't. I'm called to the thinkers. People who've been like, okay, this something ain't right, and I feel like we should be further than this. So this math ain't math, and so something is wrong. I'm called to those folks. The people who are okay with thinking through the word of God to getting a result. Not called to the church. I'm not called to those people. So I have to be okay with who my audience is. You know what I'm saying? And it's a different audience from the academy to whatever world I'm in right now. But it's still a valuable audience. I had to stop devaluing the things that I learned in another arena just because the arena looked different. The arena shifted. The muscle memory is still the same. The gifting still works. The math will still math if you allow it to math. But had I said, well, I don't have this type of training, which I did go over in my mind a little bit. I'm not this, I didn't do this. You told when I thought I was, was going to go to theology school, you said no. And now I understand because I understand what they go over in theology school now. But I didn't then, but it was God shielding me from a lot of stuff, y'all. But I did not get that training because the Holy Spirit was my training. The Holy Ghost. And he is your training too. The Bible tells you that he is your counselor. He will lead you into all truth. He will be your mentor. The master for mentor. The person who knows everything. He will mentor you. You have the access to the greatest mentor of your whole life, and you won't use them. You don't believe what this mentor is telling you to do. He's giving you the blueprint, or he's beginning to give you the blueprint. If he can't trust you with the idea, do you think you're going to get the next step? You won't even move on the first idea, the nugget that he laid within you and dropped in your spirit. And it doesn't mean it's going to produce this grandiose result on the first trial, the first step. But after you do that first step, you get the next step. You get the next piece of the puzzle. But a lot of us are holding an incomplete puzzle that is willfully incomplete because we won't put the first piece into its place. We won't. We won't. We disqualify ourselves every time. And it's time for us to stop. Stop disqualifying yourself from success. Stop. You don't belong down there. Why are you living so low? Why do you think so low of yourself? You don't belong there. You do not belong down there. And even if you're not in the gutters, the level you're on, you belong higher. There's always more with God. There's always more if you're willing to go after it. If you're willing to go after it. Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to stretch you? Yes. Are you going to experience warfare? Mm-hmm. Are you going to get the support that you want? No. Will you have the support you need? Yeah. You'll have the backing of heaven. That's it. Are you willing to go with the backing of heaven? And eventually people will start to catch on and be like, oh, I believe in you. But it don't even matter because they don't got a heaven or hell to put you in, and they not paying none of your bills. Not one. And they're probably worried about themselves. We have to get out of this low lifestyle that we've been conditioned to accept. It was conditioning. If the Bible tells you you're in this world but not of it, why are you binding yourself to the rules of this world, to the limitations of this world, to limitations of this kingdom? You're in it. But who said you had to bind yourself to its limitations? God already told you in the beginning to have dominion and subdue. So in the beginning, he said, I'm not binding you to this experience. You are. You're binding yourself to the experience. And isn't that a shame? Because God had so much more for you, so much more in mind for you. But it's you. It's an accountability thing. It's a you thing. It's a you thing sometimes. Sometimes, our frustrations, we're human. I get frustrated too. I get mad too. I roll my eyes too. I get threatening to give up every day. And I be like, you gonna give up, Brianna? No, you're not really. You're really just mad and frustrated, and you're going through some some emotions right now. But giving up that's not even who you are. You gotta see. You've seen so many things through. You made it out of the hood. Remind yourself who you are. You should not be where you're at statistically. You come from a teenage single mother from the inner city of Chicago. You have made it out. You were not supposed to, but you did. You did. Look at you. You made it out. And if you can make it out of that, you can keep progressing to see this thing through. Because there was no blueprint when I got out. It wasn't. No one showed me the way. No one knew the way. I was the first to leave. So scared, shaking in my boots, afraid. But I said, Chicago, it's not it. I don't belong here. And if I stay, I had enough wherewithal to know if I stay, I was going to get ate up by the city. And y'all know what I mean. I was going to get ate up. I was going to quickly become probably a statistic. And I left. I gave myself a chance, not knowing anything. Yo, I chose my schools. This is how much I did not know. I got into every college that I applied to because I was in an IB program and I graduated number 8 in my class. And I chose my school. I did any, mini, miny, mo because I didn't know how to decide on a school. I didn't have any guidance. This was me overwhelmed. I have all of these options, all of these choices, and I don't know what to do. And in my childlike mind, 18, still adult enough to know you need to get out, but child enough to know you don't know what you're doing. I chose a school. Any, many, money, no, mo. Came up with the school. Hated every bit of it. I did not like living in Jackson, Mississippi, but I went. It was my first time in the South, and I figured it out, and it was hard. And I worked hard, and I worked 2 jobs, and I went to school, and I graduated magna cum laude. And I didn't have a blueprint. I had no desire to go to grad school. No one even talked to me about grad school. I didn't even know what grad school was. And we were coming up a few months before graduation. This was my senior year. And I didn't have a plan. I knew I couldn't go back home. That was out of the question. I was not going back to Chicago. And I heard somebody talking about grad school. A professor suggested, oh, you should apply to grad school. Okay, I don't know. I applied to one school. One school I applied to. Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I got into that one school. I didn't have mentorship. I get into this school and I go from an HBCU to a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. And I'm in culture shock because my whole life I just been around Black folks. In my master's program, that's the first time I got a physical mentor, someone who actually worked with me on becoming the scholar that I was before I left the academy. But for so long, I didn't have mentorship. I didn't have guidance. It was a crash course in figuring it out. And I remember struggling greatly because I didn't know what to do. I was becoming someone else that I, didn't recognize. It was the first time that I was taking my faith serious for me. It was so many changes. I remember her. I remember the master's program, Brianna. I remember her, 2014 to 2012 to 2014. I remember her. She was struggling, trying to figure it out. Didn't know which way to go, but figured it out. And then I didn't have a plan. This is how by the seat of my pants my life has been. I didn't have a plan. So my professor said, you're good at English, because I was already majoring in English. I figured out I was good at English in high school. So I went the road like with the least resistance. I'm good at reading, writing, and critical thinking. So he says, you should go to grad school. And I'm filled with the sea of grad school applications. They were so expensive, like $75 for an application. And I ain't have no help. I'm still working. I'm full-time grad student. I'm teaching. So I started teaching college at 24. So I was the teacher of record, which means that I was not like a teaching assistant. I was the teacher. And I'm struggling because I'm like, okay, I can only apply to a certain amount of grad schools because I don't have any money. I don't have no money. And I think I applied to five grad schools. I applied to 5. And I got into 2. I got into the University of Texas, San Antonio, and I got into the University of Alabama on conditional admittance. And I got into UA because on conditional admittance, which was for the first time in my life meant that I was on academic probation, is because I did not do well on the GRE. I'm not a good test taker. And I'm also not good in math and science, and I don't even understand why they have that on there. We're not even finna use that. But anyway, I got in conditional admittance. I was on academic probation for a year. And I remember going down to UTSA. It didn't feel right. Alabama was not offering me any funding, anything like that. And so I went to Texas to tour the campus, and it was a nice campus, but it didn't really feel like I was supposed to be there, but I didn't have another option. I didn't have another choice, right? I needed some funding, at least a fellowship. And the fellowship is like they'll let you teach or work, and they'll pay you a small stipend. And I remember going to UTSA, and I signed the contract because you have to sign your contract. And the next day, I'm scheduled to go back to the airport I'm okay. I'm resolved that, okay, I'm about to be in San Antonio, even though I don't want to be in San Antonio. And I get a call from the University of Alabama. And it was the department chair at the time. And he says, Brianna, and it was late in the game too. Brianna, it's probably April. I hope you haven't done anything crazy yet. And I said, what you mean? He says, like, sign with another school. And I said, I actually just signed with UTSA. He said, okay, I'm gonna call you back. He didn't call me back. The scholar who I wanted to work with, and the only reason I wanted to, this is how God works for real. I remember sitting in an HBCU classroom in an English class, and the teacher telling us about her dissertation mentor who allowed her to write on a particular topic. And I thought to myself, it would be so cool to study under this particular lady. I don't know nothing about this lady, but just to hear the teacher talk about her dissertation mentor, I was like, man, it would be so cool. But I already knew the dissertation mentor, she had retired. She retired from UNC Chapel Hill. She's a very big deal in African American literature. And somehow she came out of retirement and was teaching at the University of Alabama. She had come out of retirement and settled home and said she's going to teach. And so he didn't call me back. She called me back. The person who I had the thought when I was in my sophomore year of undergrad and said, this would be such a cool experience to study under her. She calls me, Brianna, this is such and such. I want to invite you down on a campus visit. I understand the university was not going to allow you to come down. I want to personally invite you down, and I'm going to pick you up from the airport myself. I say, yes, ma'am. So now I'm like, oh snap! I'm gonna meet this big girl, this big lady in the field, and she was amazing. And so I rescinded my contract from UTSA because I wanted to work with her. And I had that thought as a sophomore in undergrad. And now I have the opportunity to work with her. So I get out of the contract with UTSA, go down to Alabama. I hated the South. And ain't it crazy that I'm back in the South again? But I hated the South. And I went down there and studied under her. And she literally was my second mentor. It took me so long to get a mentor, but she was the person who worked with me the most, worked with me on my writing. She helped me become the scholar who I am today. And she is still very active in my life, even though I'm not in academia anymore. She was my second parent when I was in Alabama. So I get in Alabama on conditional admittance. And it messed with my self-esteem because I'm like, I've always been a high performing student. Right? I've never been on academic probation a day in my life. So I get there and I'm working. So when I came in as on conditional admittance, I graduated the top performing graduate student that year. Went on to win 3 awards for my dissertation. Though the beginning, they said, this girl ain't good enough to get in this program. We're going to conditionally admit her. I finished in 4 years, 200-page dissertation. 4 years. Wrote on the same author that they told me was not good enough in 2014, and it went on to win 3 awards. And I didn't get a mentor till late in the game. My classmates, they had mentors in undergrad. They were babysitting for their mentors. They was here, and here Brianna is, walking the road less traveled, getting all the hits that a mentor could have shielded me from. But I didn't get it. I didn't get it till late. But what if I would allow the fact that I don't have the opportunities that my colleagues have and my classmates have hold me back? I had to believe in my ideas enough and myself enough to say, I'm just going to have to see it through. And on that dissertation, I had to stand my ground and say, this is the idea. This is what I'm supposed to do. And what's funny about this moment in history is that we know a lot about like Elon Musk and his Neuralink. I wrote a section of my dissertation on brain to brain interfaces or brain to brain communication in 2018. So what we see in production now with the Neuralink, I was already writing about in 2018 because it was already in a book that was published in 1972. So it doesn't matter. I'm telling y'all this story of how I get. Oh, let me tell y'all the job story. So I okay, so the way the job market works at, once you finish your degree, everyone can apply for all the jobs. All the jobs open up in August, between July, August, and September. You go in this one database or two databases generally, and you look for the job ads. And anybody in the profession, whether you're a graduate student, whether you're already an assistant professor, whether you're an associate professor and willing to lose your tenure, anybody can apply to these jobs. Everybody from around the world is trying to get a job. And generally, in your specific field, there may be like 10 jobs that year. 10. So you go on this job market. You're also going on a job market with your friends who has similar research interests. So y'all basically competing against each other to get a job. So you go on this job market and the job chooses you, right? You don't, if they feel like your research is good enough, then they'll invite you for an interview. So I did 30 applications that year. And some of them I was manipulating my research. I did not, my research did not fit into their job ad, but I needed a job. And I got 5 online interviews. So Skype interviews is what they were using at the time. And this is when they start asking you questions. It's a conversation. Sometimes if they're at a certain conference that happens in January, you will have your in-person interview there. And it's like 5 faculty members from that university interviewing you to decide if you can move on to the next round. But if they're not going to that conference where everyone else interviews, they'll have Skype interviews starting now, early December. And so I had 5 Skype interviews, which ultimately turned out to be only 2 campus interviews. And this is how narrow it gets really quickly. And so once you pass the Skype interviews and they say, okay, we want to invite her to campus to see if her research is good, if she meshes well with the other faculty, if students like her, like you're literally, when you go to campus, you're interviewing for 72 hours. The moment you touch down on the plane, you're basically interviewing with the person who picks you up, which is generally a faculty member. You have to have conversations with the graduate students. You have to do a job talk. You may have to do a teaching demonstration. You interview with the dean. You talk to so many people for 72 hours. You're on. And a job talk is 30 minutes. Y'all think there's 20, this how I talk right here, or when I'm teaching on the kingdom and talking like it's similar to that. But these are also academics who know general stuff about the field as well. So you're on 72 hours. It's exhausting. It's exhausting, it's intimidating, and that's just a process. So I go on these 2 job talks and I don't get any offers at first. 2 job talks. And once you make it, let me say this, once you make it to the job talks, the on-campus interview, it's generally down between you and 2 to 3 other people. So they've narrowed this pool of, like, when I was on a job committee, there was probably 120 applicants the year that I was on the committee. And so you narrow it down from 120 applicants to 3 or 4 that you bring to campus. It's an exhausting thing, right? And from that moment, then they say, okay, we're thinking of making an offer. So you go to generally you have your campus interview in January. They try to make an offer by February, March, because they're competing. They know everyone is trying to get the same job. So if another school makes you an offer before them, chances are they're going to lose that candidate and you're going to go with the other job. So it's like a competition. So I remember this. I remember one of the schools I did not want to go to, and it was Auburn University because I wanted to get out of Alabama and I didn't want to be in Alabama at all. Right? Okay, let me block this demonic lady right here. Okay. So, okay. So anyway, I remember, I remember saying, I don't want to be in Auburn. Like, it was not great. And mind y'all, I am 28. I've already lived 4 years in Alabama, right? From 24 to 28. I'm trying to get out. Okay. I need some type of social life. I'm saying, God, let me out. Oh, Jesus. Let me do this. Hold on, I'm gonna block this person. Okay. So I'm trying to get out. So the job, the university that I was at, that finally gave me a job, they're like, "Hey, Brianna, we actually went with another candidate. We made a job offer to another candidate. We will." How the freak is this thing happening? Hold on one second. Okay. We will what'd she say? They said we will circle back. Like we've made an offer. You are our number two. We made an offer and we're gonna circle back to see, if this person doesn't accept the offer, then we'll make you the offer. That's basically how it goes. So this person has 2 weeks of negotiation. So for 2 weeks, my life is in limbo because when you're trained to be an academic, you are expected to go into academia, become a professor, right? So my life is in limbo for 2 weeks. They were negotiating. Then this person, I guess, maybe just wanted a higher offer from the university that they were at. They were already advanced. They were already in the field. I'm a grad school student coming out of grad school, though I have at this time 5 years of teaching experience on a college level. It didn't matter because this person had more publications. They were just better because they had already been doing what I was coming out of school doing. And that's how unfair those odds are stacked up against people who are coming out of school. So I'm crying, y'all. I am depressed. My friends are getting jobs. They are happy. I couldn't even celebrate them because I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what am I going to do now? Like, I did everything right, right? I did everything right. What am I going to do with my life now? So I didn't know. So then I was in Atlanta. 2 weeks later, I was in Atlanta and I was scheduled to give a talk at Spelman. I was participating at a conference and I was scheduled to give a talk at Spelman that next day. But I was going to the opening session, which is like, like any opening session of a conference that you would go to on the religious side. And when I was sitting in the parking lot, I got a call from my former university's department chair and says, "Hey, basically, we want to offer you the job. Let's go into negotiation." So we're talking, and it after 2 weeks of being depressed, feeling like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't know. I don't have another plan. Like my plan is only plan A. I've never had a plan B, y'all. I never have a plan B. Plan A is always the plan, and I run the play until I can't run it no more. And I just got a job offer and I'm ecstatic. I called my dissertation chair. I got the offer. We celebrating. I go into the opening session and I leave. I'm finna tear up and y'all finna understand why. My dad calls me. And basically that day, my brother dies. And so it's the best of times and the worst of times at the same time for me because I just got a job, something I was worried about. But then at the same time, I just lost a sibling who was like 2 years younger than me. And he has a child. So 2018 was this whirlwind, right? I'm struggling. because I know my father is happy, but I also know he's sad. And I still have not defended my dissertation yet. My dissertation defense was 4 days later, right? So let me put it back in perspective. I'm in Atlanta I'm about to give a talk at Spelman the next day. I get the job offer. I'm feeling heavy because I haven't heard from nobody about a job. I'm feeling heavy. I get the job offer. I'm on 10. I'm brought back to 0 because of the death of my sibling. And then 4 days later, I'm scheduled to defend my dissertation. I'm out of my mind. My mind was not there. I do not even remember defending my dissertation. I don't remember what I said. I'm literally the day that I had to give the talk at Spelman, because I did give the talk, I was sweating profusely. Like I was on straight adrenaline that day. I get back 4 days later, I defend my dissertation. I don't remember it. It was a blur because my mind was not there. And what I do remember is, after you defend, you have to leave the room. It's 5 people who have already read your work. Some of them are shady. They may have something against you, so they want to make it hard. But that really wasn't my case. One person did do that, my outside reader. But the consensus, the other 4 professors, they were really chill, and they knew I knew my stuff. But I remember leaving the room for them to deliberate on if I would become Dr. Whiteside at that moment. And I remember going to the hallway and breaking down, because to that point I had not cried. To that point I had not cried because I was afraid that if I cried, I was never going to be okay to defend. So I never did it. I just was like, no, I gotta get through it. Gotta get through it. Like the hours turned to days. It was just like this never ending thing. And I just completely broke down in the hallway. And it wasn't even tears of happiness because they came out, they generally come out and say, congratulations, Dr. Such and such. I was in tears, not at the congratulations, but at the broken heart of losing a sibling. Right. And anyway, I get this degree, right? I get this degree. We bury my brother. Um, and then I have to prepare to move to Las Vegas, a place I never wanted to live. Okay. But the crazy part is, as I was preparing to move to Vegas, a bad storm hit. I was in Chicago celebrating one of my cousin's graduations. A bad storm hits, and then a tree falls on the house that I am renting. And it falls on the house so bad that it caves in the roof and it separates the structure from the house. So it's raining in the house, right? And I'm in Chicago and I'm on my way back. And so now that's the moment that I experienced homelessness, because I was living in a hotel. No one could help me. I had no money because I had negotiated, because once you graduate, they cut you off. I was only making 13 grand a year, to be honest. And they cut your funding off once you graduate. And so I don't have any funding. I did negotiate with my new employer to allow me to teach over the summer, and everything was supposed to be lined up perfectly. But for some reason, some paperwork got messed up and I never got paid. And so I'm living in a hotel for 2 months, homeless. My face is broken out. I still believe that I'm supposed to be in Vegas, even though this university can't figure out my payment. Like, I can't stay in Alabama. There's nothing for me to do. So I have to go forward, but I'm not really sure what forward is for me. And the people who've been following me a long time know this story, that I moved to Vegas with $30 in my pocket, not because I was irresponsible, but so many things started to happen to stop me from getting to this place. So my face is broken out. I'm living on credit cards. Credit cards maxed out, which is how I ended up in $10,000 of consumer debt, because I couldn't live. I was already living on student loans and refund checks. You know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, the life was life and so bad for me. And I said, okay, by faith, I'm going to have to still go because I know I'm supposed to be in Vegas, right? And I ship all of my clothes, or I give away a lot of clothes. And I knew someone who wanted some clothes, needed some clothes. So I ship all my clothes away, well, majority of them away. I give away all my furniture in my apartment. This is the second time I've done this. When I moved here to Texas, it was the third time that I've given away all of my stuff to someone in need. So I literally start over from scratch every few years. And I give my furniture away. I pack up what's left in my car or what I need, and I ship my car, right? I ship it, they're transporting it. And we agreed that it was going to come to my door at a certain time on a certain date because it was going to take a few days for them to get my car there. And they said, totally fine. We agreed, signed the paperwork. At this time, though, I still haven't gotten paid. So when I get on this plane to a place where I don't know nobody at. And I have 30 something dollars in my pocket. And I don't know what I'm going to do the next day. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm on the plane afraid, heart in my chest. What am I going to do? And why did I step out here? Right? All people could do is pray for you. I'm praying. Some people who knew the situations, I wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have done that. If I was you, I wouldn't have done this thing. But I did because the future was calling me and I knew something within me was saying, you belong here, right? Nothing in my my line of sight was agreeing, but my spirit was like, no, you belong here. Get on this plane surrounded by mountains, and I step into my new reality with 30 something dollars. I go to bed shook. I cried myself to sleep that night. Oh, I cried because the next day I had to give the car shipping place the rest of the money that I owed them. I was also responsible to give my new apartment the money because I had signed an online lease for them to hold the apartment. Like, I woke up, I did not know what I was going to do. I'd already been homeless for the first time, not because of me, but because of all of these circumstances just started to happen. And I'm just like, I did the right thing. You told me to go to school and get a good job. You told me to go to school and I did. You told me to stay away from this stuff and I did. Like, I did the steps. And the steps were not seem to be turning against me, right? This is such a difficult story, but I'm catching everybody up to the person you see before you right now. And I remember waking up the next day and the university had released three of the 10,000 that they owed me, three of the 10. And that was enough for me to get my apartment, get some groceries, and also get my car. The funny thing about my car, though, is instead of them dropping my car off at my apartment, they dropped it off at a casino and left it there, left the keys there in valet. And I'm like, with all my stuff, that's all I got. This all I freaking got. Right? So it was a whole thing there. But it was enough. And it was in the last minute. They was able to figure out, well, I don't even know. I did think it was something demonic, but they was able to figure out how to get me paid. And that situation was the beginning of my 5 year living in the desert. I know a lot of people think like, oh, it's Vegas. Vegas is the desert for non-travelers, for non-visitors. It's the desert. And my physical desert was also spiritual desert, emotional desert. Like, I had a literal 5 year wilderness experience until I moved to Texas in 2023. And even this move was surrounded by the weight of knowing that you are about to, if you move, Brianna, you're leaving your career. I knew that if I said yes to God and moved when he gave me the idea to move in January 2023, that was going to start the process of the end of the career. I just didn't know when it was going to end, but I knew that it was going to end. And it ended, the process to ending it started September. And it was fully actualized June of 2024. And so y'all see how hard this journey was, but I walked this hard path, this road less traveled, the road that a lot of people would not have the courage to walk. But it was my road to walk. And since when has the road to greatness been an easy road? Since when has the road to greatness been leisure or luxury or luxurious? Since when, if Christ tells you to take up your cross, that means that a lot of deaths will happen every day. But we have to get to the point where we're willing to walk it even with tears in our eyes, because we have to be able, or we have to have the desire to see what's the end goal for us. What was it that God had in mind for us? And that is the only thing that still fuels me today. Every decision is, I'm curious about my future. I'm going to risk this present. I'm going to risk it all. But I'm so curious about the future that I'm willing to bet my present. And that is how I make these successes that I make. And they're not like, I live a very delayed gratification lifestyle. And so they're not every year I'm succeeding in something. No, it's every few years. Okay. But even every few years is still a great track record, because I just run the play. I suffer through the play. I run the play. I show up. That's it. I don't know how we got here, but thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I've been on this thing 2 hours, y'all. I really just wanted to check in and encourage y'all. So, how y'all doing? Y'all still here? Y'all still hanging? Give yourself a chance to see what your end. Why is my phone updated by itself? Oh my God. Give yourself a chance to see what God had in mind for you. Give yourself a chance. You don't know how much time you have left. You don't know. You don't know if you're going to see tomorrow. You don't know. And wouldn't it be a shame if you just took all your time for granted and thought, I just going to have all of this time, and you don't? That's arrogance, because it's not even your breath in your lungs. You don't know. You know? Whew. How y'all feeling? I want to just encourage y'all to do what you know to do. Use what's in your hands, even if it feels insignificant. What feels insignificant to you becomes a big deal with God. It becomes significant with God. You know? So don't discount yourself. Don't sleep on yourself. Don't say, don't believe the lie that a lot of us have believed. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. You know? And if you do drink the Kool-Aid, drink God's Kool-Aid. Drink what he said, the ingredients that he put in the Kool-Aid. Drink what he says about you. Not what culture, not what your parents may have said, not what your family may have said, because they're sometimes they just reason from their limited experience, you know? But the Holy Spirit has the full experience of you, because he was there at creation when God created you. So he fully knows what God had in mind for you, you know? So we just have to get to a point, we, you know, we have to just get to a point where we agree with heaven no matter what. With tears in our eyes, we agree. And we agree with what he says about you, about you, about what you're capable of, about what you were created to do, about why you're here. All of the, like, you have to agree about you, about you. And once you start to take yourself seriously, it's up from there. It's up from there. You got to take yourself seriously. Take your future seriously. Take your ideas seriously. Even if they don't appear to measure up to what may be on the market right now, so what? It don't matter. They started somewhere. They started in seed form. They started with things that they didn't have, but they were able to graduate because they allowed time and chance to align for them. And you have to allow time and chance to align for you. And time and chance don't have to start aligning in 2025. It can start aligning for you today with a decision that you make. It can align, it can start things can start being highlighted to you tomorrow based on the decision that you made. You know? So I hope this has encouraged you. I hope this has encouraged y'all to persevere. It's not an easy road. It's not easy being you. I understand that. It's not easy. But just because it's not easy does not mean it's not possible. Okay? You've never seen a you before, so give yourself an opportunity to operate in full expression of what God has for you. When y'all see me doing these lives 2 times a week, just know that I told myself that you got to do better. And me trying to do better is going live an extra day. It don't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to be a planned thing. I don't even know what days. It's whatever day that I have enough time that I can do it. Or whatever day I'm going to make the time to do it. That's it. And the same is for you. Do not ever underestimate your decisions. Your decidedness will get you far. Your decidedness will get you far. When you decide I'm going to run the play, come hell or high water, you run the play, come hell or high water. When you decide that you're going to get in shape and not give yourself any excuse, you're going to get in shape. You know the saying, what if you believe you can, you're right. If you believe you can't, you're right. Whatever you believe, you're correct. It may not work for you. It may not be what you should believe, but whatever you believe, you're right about yourself. It may not be what God says about you, but it is about what you say about you. And the Bible already tells you, you will have what you say. So make sure you say your decrees. I have not said mine yet. I need to go ahead and say them because I'm tired now. Make sure you say your decrees today. Join me tomorrow for the second live teaching of the challenge. Tomorrow's Monday. No, tomorrow's not Monday. Don't join me tomorrow. I thought tomorrow was Monday. Join me Monday for the second live teaching of the challenge. You can grab all your challenge merchandise at BriannaWhiteside.com and pre-order my latest book, which I'm going to be shipping out next week. Words and Authority, Have the Breath of God Sanctions Kingdom Authority. You can grab that at BriannaWhiteside.com. If you want a signed copy, or you can grab the ebook at BriannaWhiteside.com. I'm basically teaching you about your authority. If you're tired of being lied to and you feel like you haven't been told the full story and you feel like something was missing, you want to grab the book. The book bridges the gap between what you have heard and what you sense. It gives language to what you may be sensing. But yeah, good night, you all. I hope this has encouraged you. I hope it has inspired you to take yourself seriously and just bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. That's all I want you to do. Bet on yourself. Give yourself a chance to thrive. And you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. But it doesn't mean that you're going to die. You're alive. You're feeling the process. And that's just fine. Okay? You'll be able to pour back into somebody else. If you haven't already liked the video, please like the video. And I will see y'all on Monday. Bye, y'all.